My grandson came up from the basement, pale and shaking. The sight of him in that state immediately set my heart racing, a strange, icy panic settling deep in my chest. "Grandma, pack a bag. We're leaving. Don't call anyone," he said, his voice low and urgent, the kind of tone that left no room for argument. His words carried a weight that made me feel the air in the kitchen thicken, heavy and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were bracing for what was about to come. I was confused, utterly unprepared for what I was hearing. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt, though a tremor of unease crept through my words. "Please, just trust me," he said again, more insistently, his eyes wide and unblinking, fixed on mine. There was a fear in him, a raw and unguarded terror that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. I had never seen him like this. He had always been a quiet, thoughtful child, careful with his words, deliberate in his movements. And yet now, he seemed like someone else entirely. A young man suddenly burdened with knowledge I could not yet comprehend. I fumbled for a moment with the thought of calling my children, of asking them what had happened, but the urgency in Tommy's gaze stopped me. 20 minutes later, the ringing of the phone in the kitchen became a frantic, almost painful background noise. My children were calling non-stop, each buzz and chime of the call sending a fresh wave of anxiety through me. "Don't answer them," Tommy shouted, snatching the phone off the counter with hands that were still trembling. He gripped it tightly, holding it like a shield between me and the outside world, his knuckles white with tension. I was 72 years old. I had lived in this house for almost 50 years, raising 3 children within its walls. I had buried my husband in the small cemetery just a mile from here, where we had first met as teenagers, where we had shared a lifetime of memories, joys, and sorrows. This house was not just a building, it was a vessel of decades of my life, a place that held echoes of laughter, arguments, quiet evenings, celebrations, and farewells. And now, my 20-year-old grandson, the child of my child, was telling me to run, as if the very ground beneath me could no longer be trusted. "Tommy, what did you find down there?" I asked, trying to steady my voice, trying to make sense of the fear that twisted in my stomach. I saw in his eyes something that struck me like a lightning bolt, a look that reminded me vividly of my late husband, a seriousness and determination that had always been his. The same resolute eyes, now mirrored in my grandson, staring at me with urgency and unspoken warnings. "Papers, legal documents, a recording," he said, each word dropping into the room like a small bomb. "Grandma, they're trying to have you declared incompetent. They've already filed with the court." The words hit me like a physical blow. My hands went numb, my chest tightened, and for a moment I could hardly breathe. In all the years I had raised my children, in all the challenges life had thrown at me, nothing had prepared me for betrayal by the very people I had brought into this world. "Who?" I managed to whisper, my voice shaking despite my effort to remain composed. "All of them. Mum, Uncle Steve, Aunt Patricia. They hired a lawyer 3 months ago. They're saying you have dementia. They want guardianship. They want to sell the house and split the money," he said, the words spilling out in a torrent of panic and disbelief. He paused, his hands shaking slightly as he held the papers like evidence of a crime I could hardly imagine. I sat down hard on the kitchen chair, the weight of the revelation pressing on me with a force that was almost physical. My hands trembled as I held them in my lap. My mind was spinning, and my heart felt as if it had lodged somewhere near my throat. "Tommy, how do you know this?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Mom left her laptop open," he explained, his voice still trembling, but gaining a small measure of control as he spoke. "I saw the email chain. Then I found copies in the basement filing cabinet. They've been planning this for months. There's a psychological evaluation scheduled for you next week. The doctor is someone Uncle Steve knows. It's rigged, Grandma." The enormity of it hit me in waves. I tried to fight the rising panic, tried to ground myself in logic and memory. My mind was sharp, it always had been. I balanced my own checkbook without issue. I drove my car safely. I managed my medications without help. There was nothing wrong with me except that I was old. My mind was mine, and my body, though aging, was still mine. And yet now, the people I had trusted most, my own children, were apparently conspiring to strip me of everything I had worked for, everything I had built with my own hands over the decades. "Pack light," Tommy said, breaking through the fog of disbelief that was threatening to swallow me whole. "We need to go to my apartment. You can't be here when they show up." "They'll come?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, my mind struggling to accept the reality of what was happening. "They're already on their way," he said, urgency sharpened now by certainty. The evaluation was supposed to be a surprise home visit, but they moved it up. I heard Mom on the phone this morning. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The thought of them arriving at my house, lawyers in tow, armed with papers and authority, was unbearable. The house, my sanctuary, the place where I had celebrated birthdays, taught lessons, nursed wounds, and loved unconditionally, was suddenly a trap. I grabbed my purse and a small bag, stuffing in a few essentials, the things I could not live without for the next uncertain hours, days, perhaps longer. Tommy moved around me with precision, gathering items, checking locks, moving things out of sight. Every movement was deliberate, practiced, as though he had anticipated every possibility, every contingency. We left through the back door, careful to avoid the street-facing windows. The early evening light was fading, casting long shadows across the yard, shadows that seemed to stretch and distort the familiar landscape of my life. Tommy helped me into his car, his presence a comforting anchor in the chaos. As we pulled away from the curb, my gaze fell on the street behind us. I saw Laura's SUV turn onto my street, its black frame glinting in the fading light, like a predator moving with purpose. We made it out just in time. Relief and fear collided in my chest, a tumultuous, nearly unbearable mixture of adrenaline and despair. As we drove away, the familiar streets I had walked for decades blurred past the car window. Each turn, each familiar corner, was now a reminder that nothing in my life would ever feel the same again. Tommy kept glancing at me, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "Grandma, you're safe now," he said quietly, but even he did not sound entirely certain. I wanted to believe him, desperately, but the thought of my children orchestrating this betrayal gnawed at the edges of my mind. How could they? How could those I had given everything to, those I had loved unconditionally, plot to take away not just my house, but my very autonomy? We drove in silence for several blocks. The tension in the car was palpable, broken only by the occasional sigh or the soft hum of the engine. I stared out the window, trying to reconcile the woman I was now with the life I had lived. Everything familiar, the smell of the kitchen, the feel of the old wooden banister under my fingers, the sight of my late husband's favorite chair in the living room. Everything felt suddenly like a fragile memory, a life that could be erased at the stroke of a pen. Once we arrived at Tommy's apartment, he helped me inside, carefully closing the door behind us. The apartment was small, modest, but it was safe. For the first time in hours, I felt the tiniest flicker of security, a fragile ember of hope that we could somehow navigate this storm together. Tommy put my bag down gently, and for a moment we just stood there, looking at one another, both exhausted, both acutely aware of the danger that still lingered beyond the walls of this safe space. "We need to think," I said, my voice steadier now, fueled by the first sparks of resolve. "We need a plan." Tommy nodded, determination hardening in his expression. "I've been thinking, Grandma. We'll figure this out. I won't let them take you or your house." I took a deep breath, trying to push aside the fear that threatened to overwhelm me. I had survived losses before, my husband, friends, the passing of time, and I'd always found a way forward. Now, I would have to do the same. My mind, sharp and unyielding, would not allow me to be stripped of my life without a fight. And with Tommy by my side, someone I trusted implicitly, perhaps there was a chance to reclaim some semblance of control. The hours stretched into night, the city lights casting a muted glow across the apartment walls. Tommy and I sat together, poring over the papers he had retrieved from the basement, examining every detail, every email, every document. The betrayal by my children was as clear as day. Each message, each signature, a nail in the coffin of trust I had once taken for granted. Yet, even in the face of such treachery, I found a strange clarity, a resolve that steeled my nerves. We would need lawyers, allies, perhaps even the police. But for now, the immediate danger had passed. For now, we were safe, and that was enough. I realized then that age might have slowed my body, but it had not dulled my mind. I was still capable, still aware, still able to protect myself, and, with Tommy's help, perhaps even turn the tables on those who had sought to destroy me. As I sat there, feeling the weight of the day pressing on me, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, that the people I had once trusted would not relinquish their plans easily. But in that moment, I also felt a spark of defiance, a fierce, unyielding determination that would not allow me to be a passive victim. I was 72, yes, but I was still alive, still aware, still ready to fight for my home, my freedom, and my dignity. Tommy reached across the small table, taking my hand in his. "We'll get through this, Grandma," he said, his voice firm and steady, a promise and a shield all at once. I squeezed his hand back, drawing strength from his presence, from the reminder that I was not alone, that I had someone in my corner, willing to stand against the storm with me. And so we sat there, together, watching the city lights shimmer beyond the window, preparing ourselves for the battles to come, knowing that the days ahead would test every ounce of courage we possessed, yet also certain that somehow we would endure. The house I had loved, the life I had built, the memories I had cherished, they were not gone. They were still mine, and I would fight to keep them, no matter the cost. Time seemed suspended, the outside world momentarily held at bay, as Tommy and I planned our next steps, every detail, every precaution, every possible outcome considered with care. The betrayal was real, the threat imminent, but so was our resolve. We would not be intimidated, we would not be coerced, and we would not surrender. In the quiet of that apartment, a new chapter began, one defined not by fear, but by courage, resilience, and an unbreakable bond between grandmother and grandson. We would need strategies, evidence, support, and perhaps patience. But one thing was certain: no court, no lawyer, no scheme could strip me of my autonomy as long as I had the will to protect it. And so, with the night stretching endlessly before us, we began to map out our path, one careful, deliberate step at a time, ready to face the storm that had been unleashed, and determined to emerge with my freedom and dignity intact. The first real breath of relief came when we heard no immediate knock at the door, no urgent messages, no sign that our pursuers had tracked us yet. That small victory, however fleeting, gave me a sliver of hope, a reminder that though the world had changed in an instant, though my family had turned against me, I still had agency, I still had my mind, and I still had Tommy, a steadfast ally, in a sudden and treacherous war I had never imagined I would fight. Hours passed, and we reviewed the documents again, identifying loopholes, contradictions, and weaknesses in the plan my children had so carefully constructed. Every email, every note, every legal form became a piece of armor in our fight, a shield against the forces that sought to undermine me. I felt the first stirrings of confidence in what had seemed like a hopeless situation, and with it, the resolve to take decisive action. We spoke little of what we would do tomorrow, of the calls we would make, of the allies we would enlist. It was enough for now to simply exist in safety, to plan, to breathe, and to reaffirm that my life, my mind, and my home were not theirs to take without a fight. The road ahead would be treacherous, yes, but I had survived so much already, and I would survive this too. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city and the soft, steady presence of my grandson, I realized something profound. Age does not diminish courage, and betrayal, though bitter, cannot extinguish the will to live freely. I was 72 years old, and I was ready to reclaim my life, one calculated, deliberate step at a time. Tommy looked at me, his eyes steady now, filled with determination and trust, and I knew that together we could face whatever came next. The night deepened, and as the city lights flickered against the walls of Tommy's apartment, I felt a sense of clarity I had not felt in decades. The world outside might be dangerous, and the people I had loved most might have turned against me, but in this small, safe space, I was alive, I was aware, and I was resolute. And that, I realized, was the first and most important step toward victory. We would endure, we would fight, and above all, we would not be broken. The storm had come, but we were ready. And in that quiet, unassuming apartment, a grandmother and her grandson prepared to reclaim what was theirs, armed with truth, courage, and an unshakable bond that no deceit, no betrayal, and no treachery could ever destroy. Time passed slowly into the early hours of the morning, and I found myself staring out the window, the familiar skyline of my neighborhood distant now, a memory, a goal, a prize to protect. I thought of the house I had loved, of the life I had built within its walls, of the memories that were as much a part of me as my own heartbeat, and I knew, without a doubt, that they would not take it from me. Not while I could think, not while I could act, and not while I had Tommy by my side. Together, we would navigate the treacherous waters ahead. Together, we would confront the people who had betrayed me. And together, we would ensure that the life I had built, the home I had cherished, and the freedom I had earned through decades of love, labor, and care would remain firmly in my hands. This was not the end of my story. It was, in truth, a beginning, a sudden, unexpected, and frightening new chapter. But one thing was clear: I would face it with every ounce of strength, wisdom, and courage I possessed. And with Tommy's unwavering support, I would not merely survive. I would prevail. The night deepened further, silent but for the occasional distant hum of traffic and the soft ticking of a clock. In that silence, I allowed myself to breathe fully for the first time in what felt like hours, to feel the adrenaline ebb slightly, replaced by a quiet, steely determination. The battle lines had been drawn, the players revealed, and now it was time to prepare, to strategize, and to protect all that I held dear. And so, with the city stretched out beneath us, lights shimmering in the distance like stars fallen to earth, Tommy and I sat together, hands clasped, hearts resolute, minds sharp. The danger was real, but so was our resolve. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with risks and betrayals, but we would walk it together, step by careful step, guided by truth, justice, and an unbreakable bond forged by love, trust, and survival. I felt the first glimmer of hope. The house, my life, my independence, these were not lost. Not yet. And as long as I could think, act, and fight, they would remain mine. The night was long, and the challenges ahead were many. But in that small, quiet apartment, a grandmother and her grandson had found their footing. And in that footing, a promise. They would endure, they would fight, and they would reclaim what had been threatened. The story was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. We sat together in that quiet, dimly lit apartment, planning, reflecting, and steeling ourselves for the days to come. The outside world was dangerous, but we were no longer passive. We were aware, prepared, and determined. The betrayal of family, the schemes, the lies, all of it would meet with resistance, intelligence, and strategy. I felt a sense of clarity and power I had not known in years. This was my life, my home, my freedom, and I would fight for it with every fiber of my being. The hours passed slowly, but in that deliberate passage of time, I found strength. Tommy's calm presence bolstered me. His sharp mind complemented mine. Together, we began to map out a path forward, one step at a time, meticulously, carefully, unyieldingly. The threat was real, yes, but so was our courage. The battle had begun, and I was ready. In the stillness of that apartment, I realized I had been underestimating my own resilience. Age had not dulled my mind, nor had years of solitude eroded my determination. I was still capable, still aware, still able to act decisively. And with Tommy by my side, the two of us could confront, challenge, and overcome the forces arrayed against us. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? Tommy's apartment was small but clean. He cleared his bed for me and took the couch. I sat there in the dim light, my mind racing. Show me everything, I said. He pulled out his laptop and a manila folder. For the next 2 hours, I read through my children's betrayal in black and white. Email exchanges about my declining mental state. Text messages mocking my forgetfulness. A draft petition for guardianship that listed fabricated incidents of confusion and poor judgment. The worst part was the financial analysis. They'd calculated exactly how much they'd each get after selling the house, splitting my savings, and moving me into a nursing home. Stephen had even researched which facilities offered the cheapest rates. How long have you known? I asked Tommy. 2 weeks. I didn't know how to tell you. I kept hoping I was wrong. Why are you helping me? He looked at me with those honest eyes. Because you're the only one who ever gave a damn about me. When Dad left, you were there. When Mum was too busy with her new boyfriend, you picked me up from school. You taught me to drive. You paid for my books when Mum said she couldn't afford it. He paused. And because this is wrong. Really wrong. I felt a cold clarity settling over me. The kind my husband used to get when someone tried to cheat him in business. He called it the ice. It was the moment when you stopped being hurt and started planning. I need a lawyer, I said. I know one. She's tough. She helped my friend's grandmother with a similar situation. Call her first thing tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in Tommy's bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the children I'd raised, the hours of homework help, the college tuition I'd contributed to, the down payment I'd given Laura for her first house, the car I'd bought Stephen when his broke down, the endless babysitting for Patricia's 3 kids. And this was how they repaid me. My phone buzzed constantly, 47 missed calls by morning, text messages ranging from concerned to angry. Laura, Mum, where are you? We're worried sick. Stephen, this is ridiculous. We need to talk about your health. Patricia, you're scaring us. Please come home. I didn't respond to any of them. Jennifer Park was 50, sharp-featured, and wore a grey suit that meant business. She sat across from Tommy and me in her downtown office, reading through the documents with an expression that grew darker by the minute. This is bad, she said finally. But it's not insurmountable. They haven't filed the petition yet. That gives us time. How much time? I asked. Maybe a week. Based on these emails, they're planning to file next Monday. They want to move fast, probably hoping you won't have time to fight back. What can I do? First, we get you evaluated by an independent psychiatrist, someone with no connection to your son. We document that you're mentally competent. Second, we file a restraining order if they try to force the issue. Third, we prepare for a fight. What about the house? Tommy asked. Can't touch it without her consent or a court order, and they won't get a court order if we can prove she's competent. Jennifer looked at me. But I have to ask, are you prepared for this to get ugly? These are your children. They stopped being my children when they decided I was worth more to them as a check than as a mother, I said. The ice was spreading through my veins. I want to fight, I want to win, and I want them to understand exactly what they tried to do. Jennifer smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed watching bad people lose. Then let's go to war. Dr. Sarah Williams was a clinical psychologist with 30 years of experience. She spent 3 hours with me, running tests, asking questions, checking my memory and reasoning skills. Tommy waited outside, scrolling through his phone nervously. When it was over, Dr. Williams looked at me with professional neutrality. Mrs. Brennan, I see no signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any cognitive impairment. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. You're sharp as a tack. Can you put that in writing? I'll have a formal evaluation on your lawyer's desk by tomorrow morning. I felt something loosen in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't losing my mind. My children were just greedy. As Tommy drove me back to his apartment, my phone rang again. This time it was Stephen. I answered on speaker. Mum, what the hell is going on? His voice was tight with anger. Laura went to your house. You're not there. You're not answering your phone. We're about to file a missing persons report. I'm fine, Stephen. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Safe from what? We're your children. We're trying to help you. The ice in my chest spread. Help me? Like you were helping me when you filed guardianship papers behind my back. Silence. Tommy found your emails, I continued, my voice calm and cold. All of them. The lawyer, the rigged evaluation, the plans to sell my house. I know everything, Stephen. More silence, then, Mom, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. So you're trying to have me declared incompetent so you can cash out now. That's not... Save it. My lawyer has everything documented. If you file that petition, we'll fight it. And I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of children I raised. I hung up. Tommy looked at me with something like awe. Grandma, that was ice cold. I learned from the best, I said, thinking of my husband. Your grandfather never let anyone push him around. Time I remembered that. 3 days later, Jennifer called a family conference at her office. She invited all 3 of my children and their spouses. It was technically voluntary, but she'd made it clear that refusing would look bad if this went to court. They all showed up. Laura came with her husband Richard, a balding insurance agent who'd always struck me as weak. Stephen brought his wife Diane, a real estate agent who'd probably already picked out her commission from selling my house. Patricia arrived alone. Her husband was deployed overseas and had no idea what his wife was planning. They sat on one side of the conference table. I sat on the other, with Tommy next to me and Jennifer at the head. Let's be clear about why we're here, Jennifer began. You 3 have been planning to file for guardianship of your mother, claiming she's mentally incompetent. We have documentation of this plan, including emails, text messages, and legal drafts. We also have an independent psychological evaluation stating that Mrs. Brennan is fully competent. Laura started to speak. Jennifer held up a hand. I'm not done. You've accused your mother of having dementia. You've fabricated incidents of confusion. You've conspired with a medical professional to provide a biased evaluation. In some jurisdictions, this could be considered elder abuse. It could also be fraud. Stephen's face was red. This is insane. We're trying to protect her. Protect her from what? Jennifer asked coolly. From managing her own property? From making her own decisions? Or protect yourselves from having to wait for an inheritance? That's not what this is about, Patricia said, but her voice wavered. Then what is it about? I asked. My voice came out colder than I'd intended. Explain to me why you've been planning to take away my rights. Mum, you've been forgetting things, Laura said. Last month you called me 3 times to ask what day it was. I called you once. I'd lost my glasses and couldn't see the calendar. The other 2 times I called to ask if you wanted to come over for dinner. You said no both times. Laura looked down. Anything else? Jennifer asked. She left the stove on, Stephen said. She could have burned the house down. I left a burner on low while I went to the mailbox. I was gone 3 minutes. The pot was fine. You're the one who made it sound like I'd set the house on fire. What about the car accident? Diane spoke up for the first time. You told us she'd gotten into an accident because she was confused. I turned to Stephen. I was rear-ended at a stoplight. The police report shows the other driver was at fault. He was texting. But you told everyone I'd run a red light, didn't you? Stephen wouldn't meet my eyes. So we've established that the incidents you're using to justify guardianship are either exaggerated or fabricated, Jennifer said. Now let's talk about what happens next. Jennifer pulled out a stack of papers. Option 1, you drop this immediately. You sign a legal document stating that you will not pursue guardianship, conservatorship, or any other attempt to control your mother's affairs. In exchange, we don't file countercharges of attempted elder abuse. Countercharges, Richard sputtered. Oh yes, what you've done is actionable. We have documentation. We have witnesses. We have evidence of conspiracy to defraud an elderly person of her property and rights. Jennifer's smile was sharp. Option 2, you proceed with your guardianship petition. We fight it in court. We expose everything. Your emails, your text messages, your plans to split the money. And when we win, and we will win, we pursue criminal charges. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Or, I said quietly, option 3, you admit what you tried to do, you apologize, and you never, ever come near me or my property again. Laura's eyes filled with tears. Mum, please. We didn't mean... You meant every word of it. I stood up. I read your text, Laura. You called me a stubborn old bat. Stephen, you joked about putting me in the cheapest nursing home you could find. She won't know the difference, you said. And Patricia, you were the worst. You suggested waiting until I had a real health crisis so it would be easier to get guardianship. Old people fall all the time, you wrote. Patricia went pale. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to sign Jennifer's document. You're going to leave me alone, and you're going to think very carefully about the kind of people you've become. And our inheritance? Stephen asked. His voice was barely a whisper. What inheritance? I'm spending it all. I'm taking cruises. I'm traveling. I'm giving money to charity. He's the only one who remembered I'm a person, not a bank account. You can't do that, Diane said. Watch me. Jennifer slid the documents across the table. Sign, now, or we file charges by end of business today. One by one they signed. When it was done, I walked out without looking back. Tommy followed. As we reached the elevator, I heard Laura crying in the conference room. I felt nothing. The ice had settled in completely. Word spread fast in a small community. Within a week, everyone in my neighborhood knew what my children had tried to do. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't have to. Tommy mentioned it to his mother during an argument, and Laura apparently broke down and confessed everything to her best friend, who told her sister, who told her book club. Small-town gossip moves faster than light. I got phone calls from old friends. Is it true? They'd ask. Did they really try to take your house? I confirmed it. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The facts were damning enough. The reaction was swift and brutal. Laura got dropped from her volunteer position at the church. Stephen's wife lost clients when word got out that she'd been planning to sell her mother-in-law's house without consent. Patricia found herself uninvited from social events. I didn't orchestrate any of it. The community did it themselves. People protect their own, and elder abuse, even attempted elder abuse, is unforgivable. My children tried to repair things. Laura sent flowers with an apology note. I donated them to a nursing home. Stephen showed up at Tommy's apartment. I refused to see him. Patricia wrote a long email explaining how it was all a misunderstanding. I deleted it without reading past the first line. Jennifer advised me to document everything. They might try again, she warned. People who are willing to go this far once usually try again. So I kept records, every attempted contact, every excuse, every manipulation attempt, and I made plans. After 3 weeks at Tommy's apartment, I went home. Jennifer had arranged for new locks. Tommy helped me install a security system with cameras. I wasn't taking chances. The house felt different now. It wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a fortress. I walked through the rooms where I'd raised my children. Laura's bedroom, where she'd spent hours on the phone with friends. Stephen's room, where he'd built model airplanes. Patricia's space, covered with cheerleading posters. They'd grown up here. I'd loved them here. And they'd repaid that love by trying to steal it all away. Tommy found me in the kitchen, staring at old photos on the refrigerator. Pictures of birthday parties and graduations. Smiling faces from happier times. "You okay, Grandma?" "I will be." I took down the photos and put them in a drawer. "Help me redecorate. I don't want to look at those faces anymore." We spent the afternoon making the house mine again. New curtains, rearranged furniture, fresh paint in the living room. By evening, it looked like a different place. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Brennan?" A woman's voice. "My name is Victoria. I'm calling from Adult Protective Services. We received a complaint about your living situation." My stomach dropped. A complaint from whom? "I'm not at liberty to say, but we need to do a home visit to ensure you're safe and capable of independent living." "When?" "Tomorrow at 10. After she hung up, I called Jennifer immediately. "They're not giving up," she said grimly. "This is their new strategy. If they can't get guardianship through the courts, they'll try to get the state to do it for them." "What do I do?" "Be ready, make sure your house is clean, have your medications organized, show them you're competent, and I'll be there too." Victoria arrived right on time. She was in her mid-30s, professional, carrying a clipboard. Jennifer was already there, along with Dr. Williams, who'd agreed to be present as my advocate. Victoria walked through the house, checking everything: the cleanliness, the safety features, the organization of my medications, the food in my refrigerator. "Mrs. Brennan, can you tell me what medications you take?" she asked. I rattled off the list: names, dosages, schedules. Perfect recall. "And you manage these yourself?" "Yes, I use a pill organizer. I refill it every Sunday. I've never missed a dose." "Who does your shopping?" "I do. Sometimes Tommy helps with heavy items, but I drive myself to the store every week." "Can you show me your bank statements?" Jennifer intervened. "Is that really necessary?" Mrs. Brennan's financial management isn't in question. It is if someone has filed a complaint alleging financial exploitation or inability to manage funds. So that was their angle. I pulled out my bank statements, balanced checkbook, organized receipts, every transaction documented and categorized. Victoria reviewed them carefully. I could see her disappointment. There was nothing wrong, nothing out of place. "Mrs. Brennan, the complaint alleged that you're being isolated from your family by your grandson. Is that true?" "No. I'm avoiding my children because they tried to have me declared incompetent so they could steal my house. Tommy protected me from elder abuse. There's a difference." "Can you prove that?" Jennifer handed over a folder. Complete documentation, emails, text messages, legal drafts, everything. There's also a signed agreement from all 3 children acknowledging their actions and promising not to pursue guardianship. Victoria read through it all. Her expression shifted from skeptical to disturbed. "I see," she said finally. "Mrs. Brennan, based on this inspection, I see no signs of incapacity, neglect, or abuse. You're clearly capable of independent living. I'll be filing a report stating that this complaint is unfounded." "Can you tell me who filed it?" I asked. "Officially, no, but—" She glanced at the documents again. "Given the circumstances, I think you can guess. I'll also be noting in my report that this appears to be a retaliatory complaint and recommending that any future complaints from the same source be treated with appropriate skepticism. After she left, I sat down hard. They're not going to stop, are they? No, Jennifer said. Not until they realize you're serious about fighting back. Then it's time to take the offensive. Jennifer and I met in her office the next morning. Tommy was there too. He'd become my unofficial bodyguard and advocate, and I was grateful for it. We need to make this expensive for them, Jennifer said, not just emotionally, financially. Every time they try something, it needs to cost them. How? I asked. Harassment lawsuits. If they continue filing false complaints, we can sue for malicious prosecution. If they contact you against your wishes, we can get restraining orders. If they spread false information about your mental state, we can sue for defamation. Will that work? It'll make them think twice. Legal fees add up fast, and if we win, they pay ours too. What about going on the offensive? Tommy asked. Can't we do something proactive instead of just defending? Jennifer considered. We could file a lawsuit for attempted elder abuse, make it public, but that's nuclear. Once you do that, there's no going back. Your relationship with your children will be permanently destroyed. I thought about the emails, the text messages, the casual cruelty in their words. It's already destroyed, I said. They destroyed it. I'm just acknowledging reality. Are you sure? Jennifer asked. This will hurt them, their reputations, their jobs, their social standing. Once we file, everyone will know what they tried to do. Good. Let everyone know. Let them face consequences for once in their lives. Jennifer nodded slowly. All right, but we do this smart. We gather more evidence. We document every attempt they make to interfere with your life. And when we have an airtight case, we strike. How long? A few months. Maybe 6. We need to show a pattern of harassment and abuse, not just one incident. I could be patient. The ice in my chest kept me calm, focused. Do it, I said. Over the next 3 months, my children made it easy to build our case. Laura showed up at my house twice, despite being told to stay away. The first time, she tried to guilt me. Mum, please, I'm sorry. Can't we talk about this? No, I said through the closed door. Leave before I call the police. The second time, she brought her daughter, my granddaughter Emily. Mum, Emily misses you. Don't punish her because of me. That one hurt. I did miss Emily, but I wasn't going to be manipulated. You should have thought about that before you tried to steal my house, I said. Using your daughter as a weapon makes you even worse. The security cameras caught everything. Stephen tried a different approach. He filed a complaint with the DMV, claiming I was unsafe to drive. That triggered a mandatory driving test. I passed with flying colors, and the examiner was irritated that his time had been wasted. Someone filed a false report, he told me. That's illegal. You should report it. I did. Jennifer added it to our file. Patricia was the most persistent. She called the police, claiming I was being held against my will by Tommy. The officers showed up, took one look at the situation, and left. But Patricia called again 2 weeks later with the same story. The third time, the police told her they'd charge her with filing false reports if she did it again. Every incident was documented, every attempt at manipulation, every false complaint, every harassment. Jennifer reviewed the files with satisfaction. This is excellent. They're making our case for us. When do we file? I asked. Soon, but first, I want to try one more thing. I want to depose them. What does that mean? Interview them under oath. Get their lies on the record. Once they've committed perjury, we can use it against them in court. Will they agree to that? We'll make them. We'll threaten to file the harassment lawsuit unless they cooperate. They'll think it's a chance to explain themselves. Really, it's a trap. I liked the sound of that. The depositions were held at Jennifer's office over 3 separate days. Each of my children came with their own lawyers, clearly nervous. Laura went first. Jennifer was relentless. Mrs. Richards, you sent your mother flowers after she discovered your guardianship plan. Why? To apologize, to try to make things right. But you also showed up at her house twice after being told not to contact her. Why? I wanted to talk to her, face to face, even though she'd explicitly told you to stay away. She's my mother. You thought you could manipulate her into forgiving you. That's not. You also brought your daughter to your mother's house during the second visit. Why? Emily wanted to see her grandmother. Or did you think using your child would make your mother feel guilty enough to let you in? Laura's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. Laura's face was red, her eyes filled with tears. Stephen's deposition was worse. He claimed the guardianship plan was for my own good, that he was worried about my health. But when Jennifer pressed him about the financial analysis he'd done, calculating everyone's share of the house sale, he stumbled. That was just planning, being prepared. Prepared for what? That's not what I meant. But you did calculate what you'd inherit. You researched nursing home costs. You discussed ways to minimize expenses so you'd maximize profits. Isn't that true? Yes, but no further questions. Patricia's deposition was the shortest. She broke down crying within 15 minutes, admitting that the whole thing had been a mistake, that she'd been influenced by her siblings, that she never really thought I was incompetent. But you signed the legal documents, Jennifer pointed out. You participated in the plan. You filed false complaints with Adult Protective Services and the police. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices. Patricia had no answer. When it was over, Jennifer compiled everything into a formal lawsuit: elder abuse, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, conspiracy to commit fraud. This is going to hurt them, she warned me one last time. Are you absolutely sure? I thought about my husband, about the way he'd taught me to stand up for myself, about the ice in my chest that had replaced the warmth I'd once felt for my children. File it, I said. The lawsuit became public record. Local news picked it up. Elderly woman sues children for attempted theft, ran the headline. The story included excerpts from the depositions, the emails, the text messages. My children were exposed. Laura lost her part-time job at a boutique when customers started avoiding the store. Stephen's business partner started asking questions about his ethics. Patricia's friends stopped inviting her to social events, but I felt no satisfaction. Just a cold, empty vindication. Tommy worried about me. Grandma, are you okay? You seem different. I'm fine. You don't seem fine. You seem angry all the time. I am angry. They tried to destroy me. I'm just returning the favor. But where does it end? When do you let it go? I didn't have an answer for that. The trial was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, my children's lawyers tried to negotiate a settlement. They offered apologies. They offered to pay my legal fees. They offered to sign documents promising never to pursue guardianship again. Not enough, I told Jennifer. What do you want? She asked. I want them to understand what they did. I want public consequences. I want everyone to know that you can't treat elderly people this way and get away with it. So we go to trial. We go to trial. The courtroom was packed. My story had generated enough interest that reporters showed up. My children sat on one side with their lawyers. I sat on the other with Jennifer. The judge was a woman in her 60s, stern-faced, no nonsense. She reviewed the case file before addressing the room. This is an unusual case, she said. We're here because 3 adult children allegedly conspired to have their mother declared incompetent so they could gain control of her assets. Is that an accurate summary? Yes, Your Honor, Jennifer said. And you're seeking damages for emotional distress, harassment, and attempted elder abuse. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. Jennifer laid out the case methodically. The emails, the text messages, The fake medical evaluation they'd planned, the false complaints to authorities, the harassment after they'd been caught. She called Dr. Williams to testify about my cognitive evaluation. Mrs. Brennan shows no signs of mental impairment. She's fully capable of managing her own affairs. She called Victoria from Adult Protective Services. The complaint filed against Mrs. Brennan was clearly retaliatory and without merit. She played audio from the depositions. Laura's admission that she'd used her daughter to try to manipulate me. Stephen's financial calculations. Patricia's false police reports. By lunch, the defense lawyers looked worried. After the break, they called my children to testify. Laura went first. She tried to paint herself as a concerned daughter, worried about her aging mother, but under cross-examination, Jennifer destroyed her credibility. You called your mother a stubborn old bat in a text message. Is that the language of a concerned daughter? I was frustrated. Can you explain that? I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Laura had no answer. Stephen tried to claim the whole thing was a misunderstanding. We thought guardianship would protect her. Protect her from what? Jennifer asked. From making bad decisions, from being exploited. By whom? By, I don't know, people who prey on the elderly. Like her own children, you mean? Stephen's face turned red. The courtroom murmured. Patricia barely made it through her testimony. She cried through most of it, admitting everything, begging for forgiveness. The judge looked unmoved. The second day focused on damages. Jennifer called witnesses to testify about the impact on my life. Tommy testified about finding the documents in the basement, about helping me escape, about the 3 months of constant harassment. How did this affect your grandmother? Jennifer asked. She changed, Tommy said. She used to be warm and funny. Now she's angry all the time. She doesn't trust anyone. She had a security system installed. She checks her locks 5 times before bed. They broke her. My neighbors testified about the gossip, about how the community had rallied around me, about how my children's reputations had been destroyed. Do you think Mrs. Brennan's children deserve what's happened to them? Jennifer asked. Absolutely, my neighbor Helen said. What they did was monstrous. If my children tried that, I'd disown them. Finally, Jennifer called me to the stand. Mrs. Brennan, can you describe how you felt when you discovered your children's plan? I took a breath. Betrayed, hurt, angry. They're my children. I raised them. How has this experience affected you? I don't sleep well anymore. I don't trust people. I look at my house and think about how they wanted to steal it. I look at old photos and feel nothing but anger. They took away my peace. They took away my family. They took away my ability to feel safe in my own home. Do you think they understand what they did? No. I think they understand they got caught. That's not the same thing. What would you like to see happen? I want the court to send a message. I want other elderly people to know they can fight back. I want my children to face real consequences, not just apologies and promises. I want justice. The courtroom was silent when I finished. Deliberations took 4 hours. When the jury returned, their faces were grim. On the count of attempted elder abuse, we find in favor of the plaintiff. On the count of harassment, we find in favor of the plaintiff. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, we find in favor of the plaintiff. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, we find in favor of the plaintiff. The judge looked at my children. This is one of the most disturbing cases I've encountered in my career. You conspired to rob your mother of her autonomy, her property, and her dignity. You lied to authorities. You harassed her when she fought back. You showed no remorse until you were caught. She paused. The jury has awarded damages in the amount of $500,000 to be split equally among the 3 defendants. You will also pay the plaintiff's legal fees. Additionally, I'm issuing permanent restraining orders. You are not to contact your mother, approach her property, or interfere with her life in any way. If you violate these orders, You will face criminal charges. Laura started crying. Stephen stared at the floor. Patricia looked like she might faint. This court is adjourned. Winning felt hollow. I'd expected satisfaction, vindication, maybe even joy. Instead, I felt tired. Tommy took me out to dinner to celebrate. You did it, Grandma. You won. Did I? I pushed food around my plate. I bankrupted my children. I destroyed their reputations. I made sure everyone knows what they tried to do. But I don't feel better. They deserved it. Maybe, but it doesn't change what I lost. I lost my family. I lost my trust in people. I lost the person I used to be. Tommy reached across the table and took my hand. You're still that person. You're just stronger now. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let them win. But what did I win? Money? Revenge? I'm still alone. I still don't have a family that loves me. You have me, Tommy said quietly. And I love you. That counts for something. It did count. He was right, but it wasn't enough to fill the hole my children had left. 3 weeks after the trial, I received a letter. It was from Laura, handwritten on stationery I'd given her years ago. Mum, it began, I know I have no right to contact you. I know the court said to stay away. But I needed to tell you something. You were right. About everything. We were greedy. We were cruel. We treated you like an obstacle instead of a person. We convinced ourselves we were doing the right thing, but we were just lying to ourselves. I've lost everything. My job, my friends, my reputation. Richard is talking about divorce. Emily asked me why Grandma hates us now, and I couldn't explain it to her. But worse than all of that is knowing what I did to you. You raised us. You loved us. You sacrificed for us. And we repaid you with betrayal. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost. And I'm sorry. Love, Laura. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer with the old photos. I didn't respond. 6 months after the trial, Jennifer called with news. Your children have filed for bankruptcy. They can't pay the judgment. The court is going to seize their assets. All of them? I asked. Whatever they have, houses, cars, savings. It won't add up to 500,000, but it'll be substantial. I thought about Laura's letter, about Emily asking why I hated them, about Stephen's business failing, about Patricia's husband coming home to find his wife had destroyed their family while he was deployed. Stop it, I said. What? Stop the asset seizure. I don't want their houses. I don't want to destroy them completely. They tried to destroy you, and I fought back, and I won. But if I take everything they have, what does that make me? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Are you sure? I'm sure. Tell the court I'm forgiving the debt. They can keep what they have. They'll see this as weakness. I don't care what they see it as. I'm done being angry. It's exhausting. After I hung up, Tommy asked me why I'd done it. Because I don't want to be the villain in my grandchildren's stories, I said. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life consumed by rage. Because the ice in my chest was starting to freeze my heart, and I didn't like what I was becoming. So you're forgiving them? No, but I'm letting go. There's a difference. I spent the next year rebuilding my life. I traveled. I volunteered at a senior center, helping other elderly people navigate legal issues. I spoke at community events about elder abuse and how to fight it. Tommy graduated from college. I was there, proud and teary-eyed. He got a good job and moved into a better apartment. We had dinner every Sunday, a tradition we both cherished. My children stayed away. They honored the restraining orders. I heard through the grapevine that Laura had gone back to school. Stephen had taken a job in another city. Patricia's husband had come home, and they were trying to repair their marriage. I didn't reach out, neither did they. One day, I was shopping at the grocery store when I saw Emily, my granddaughter. She was 16 now, tall and beautiful. She saw me too. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she walked over. "Hi, Grandma." "Hi, Emily." "I'm not supposed to talk to you." "I know. But I wanted to tell you something." She took a breath. "Mum explained what happened, what they tried to do to you, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." "Thank you," I said softly. Do you hate us?" I thought about it, about the anger I'd carried for so long, about the ice that had finally started to thaw. "No," I said, "I don't hate you. I'm just sad about what we lost." "Me too." Her eyes filled with tears. "I miss you." "I miss you too." We stood there in the cereal aisle, both of us crying quietly. Then Emily hugged me, quickly, fiercely, and walked away. I stood there for a long time, my heart breaking and healing at the same time. 2 years after the trial, I received another letter. This one was from Stephen. "The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. I wanted to reach out before it's too late. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, about who I became. You were right to fight back. You were right to expose us. We deserved everything that happened. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I spent these last 2 years trying to be a better person. I volunteer at a homeless shelter. I donate to elder care charities. I'm trying to make up for what I did, even though I know I never can. I also wanted to tell you that it wasn't your fault. You were a good mother. We were just bad children. I love you. I'm sorry." "Stephen," I called Jennifer immediately. "Can I contact him? The restraining order." "The restraining order only applies if he doesn't want contact. If you both agree, you can see him." I called Stephen's number from the letter. He answered on the first ring. "Mum, I got your letter. I didn't think you'd respond. I want to see you. Can I come?" There was a long pause. Then, "Yes, please." Stephen was in a hospice facility, thin and pale and barely recognizable. I sat by his bed, holding his hand, trying not to cry. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything." "I know. Do you forgive me?" I thought about the 2 years of anger, the coldness in my heart, the ice that had finally melted. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. "It's hard, but I'm trying. That's more than I deserve." We sat in silence for a while. Then I said, "Tell me about the shelter, the volunteering." He smiled weakly. "It's good work, helping people who actually need it. It makes me feel less like a monster." "You're not a monster. You made terrible choices, but you're still my son." He cried then. So did I. I visited him 3 times a week until he died. We talked about his life, his regrets, the things he wished he'd done differently. We didn't talk about the trial or the guardianship plan. There was no point. When he died, I was there, holding his hand, telling him I loved him. It wasn't forgiveness, not quite, but it was something close. I went to Stephen's funeral. Laura and Patricia were there, both of them looking older and worn down. We didn't speak, but we stood together as they lowered his casket into the ground. After the service, Laura approached me cautiously. "Thank you for coming. He was my son. Can we talk, just for a minute?" I nodded. We walked to a quiet corner of the cemetery. "I've been in therapy," Laura said, "trying to understand why we did what we did. My therapist says it was about control, about fear, about not wanting to face the fact that we'd become the kind of people who'd hurt you. Have you figured it out?" "Some of it. I was scared of losing you, so I tried to control you. Stephen was scared of not having enough money, so he tried to take yours. Patricia was scared of being left out, so she went along with it. We were all just scared and stupid and cruel. Fear doesn't excuse what you did." "I know, but it explains it, and understanding it has helped me change. I'm not that person anymore, or at least I'm trying not to be." I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed sincere. "I can't forgive you yet," I said. "Maybe someday, but not yet." "I understand, but if you ever want to try, I'm here." and I'll wait as long as it takes. 3 years after the trial, on my 75th birthday, Tommy took me to dinner. Over dessert, he handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a letter from Laura, Patricia, and their children, an invitation to a family dinner. No expectations, no pressure, just an offer to try again. "They asked me to give it to you," Tommy said. "They know it's your decision, but they wanted you to know they're ready if you are." I stared at the invitation. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to hold on to my anger, to protect myself from being hurt again. But another part of me, the part that had been frozen for so long, wanted to try. "What do you think I should do?" I asked Tommy. "I think you should do whatever makes you happy. If that's moving on without them, fine. If it's giving them another chance, that's fine too. But do it for you, not for them." About Emily in the grocery store, about Laura's letter, about the ice in my chest that had finally melted completely. "I'll think about it," I said. 2 weeks later, I walked into a restaurant where my family was waiting. Laura, Patricia, their husbands, their children. Even Tommy was there, sitting at the head of the table. They all stood when I arrived, nervous, hopeful, scared. "Hi, Mum," Laura said softly. "Hi." We sat down. It was awkward at first, stilted conversation, too many silences. But slowly, carefully, we started to talk. Patricia told me about her husband's new job. Laura talked about going back to school. The grandchildren chatted about sports and homework and friends. I mostly listened, observing, evaluating, trying to decide if this was real or just another manipulation. But as the evening went on, something shifted. I saw genuine remorse in their faces, real effort in their words. They were trying, really trying. It wasn't enough to erase what they'd done, but it was a start. When dinner ended, Laura walked me to my car. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't." "Can we do this again? Maybe in a month?" I looked at her, at the daughter I'd raised, at the woman who'd tried to destroy me, at the person who was now trying to rebuild. "Maybe," I said. "One step at a time." She smiled through tears. "One step at a time." Over the next year, we had dinner once a month, then twice a month, then weekly. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, times when old hurts resurfaced, arguments about the past and the present and the future. But slowly, painfully, we rebuilt something resembling a relationship. Laura and I went to therapy together. Patricia joined us sometimes. We talked about what had happened, about the guardianship plan, about the trial, about the years of silence. We apologized. We cried. We yelled. We forgave. Slowly. I learned that Laura had been struggling with her own fears about aging and mortality, that Stephen had been drowning in debt from bad investments, that Patricia had felt pressured by her siblings to go along with the plan. None of it excused what they'd done, but it helped me understand. An understanding, I discovered, was the first step toward forgiveness. On my 77th birthday, my family threw me a party. The whole family. Laura and her children, Patricia and her husband, Tommy and his new girlfriend. Even Stephen's widow came, bringing their children. We gathered in my backyard, the house I'd fought so hard to keep. There was cake and laughter and stories about old times. Laura gave me a photo album she'd made, pictures of our family through the years, the good times before everything fell apart. "I wanted you to have this," she said, "to remember that we weren't always broken." I flipped through the pages, birthday parties, holidays, graduations, weddings, all the moments we'd shared before greed and fear had destroyed us. "Thank you," I whispered. Patricia gave me a different gift, a donation certificate. She'd made a contribution to an elder abuse prevention organization in my name. "I can't undo what we did," she said, "but maybe this will help someone else." I hugged her, really hugged her, for the first time in years.